Good morning. Today we are going to make apple sage jelly. Now these apples don't have to be pretty. We have a no spray farm here, which tends to lead to some very scabby looking, nasty looking apples. But you know what? On the inside, they're just as beautiful as anything. So I save probably the scabbiest and the nastiest ones for this because we're going to steam the juice out. So it doesn't matter if it has, say, maybe a little, like I said, nasty spot. That's fine. That's not going to make it anywhere near your jelly. Now, I'm not bothering to peel these. Number one, I don't want to do the work. This is a time of year where I have so much to do. I do not want to take the time of peeling them. If I was doing that, I'd be making applesauce or pie filling. But more than that, by not peeling them, this beautiful red skin, that comes out in the juice. I'll show you later. It turns out to be the prettiest pink. And I like things pretty, if I can handle it. If there's ever a possibility of pretty, that's what we go for. Because you eat with your eyes first. If something was nasty and yucky looking, would you want to eat it? I don't think so. Now I use this jelly both as kind of like how I would for mint jelly for my lamb. I use it alongside pork chops, or if I wanted to glaze a ham, I'll melt it down, little apple cider vinegar, because you need a little bit acidic. This does tend to be on the sweet side. You'll see in a bit when I add all that sugar in. So when I'm glazing a ham, I do put on just a little bit of apple cider vinegar just to cut out some of that sweetness. But when I'm having a pork chop and it has all that beautiful fat rind on it, sweet is what I want. I always like just a little bit sweet in what I eat. Just a little. Too much is just too much, but just a little just satisfies my taste buds, makes me feel like I've had a meal. If I don't have something sweet, I don't think I've eaten. So, see what I mean by that nasty? That's brown, yucky. I wouldn't serve that in a pie, but into my juice, for this jelly, that's completely fine because none of that will make it in. Now these are getting to be the last of the apples of the season. I'm making this video towards the end of October. So we tend to have earlier apples. Some of these are Red Delicious, which really are no good for anything but eating fresh. This is a Red Delicious right here. I couldn't help it though. I normally would never have planted that, but the farmer's dad, when he was buying Hannah an apple tree, decided on Red Delicious, so that's what we have. I tend to go for more of the heritage varieties, so in here is also some Spitzenberg and some Sweet 16 to kind of round out that flavor. The best juices, apple juice and other juices, come from a variety. I like to have lots of depth. This is one of the Spitzenberg. You can tell by the little specks of color. I think I've already cut up all my Sweet 16s. They tend to be an earlier apple, so there wasn't too many of them hanging on the tree left. I'm gonna fill this, I don't know if you can see, but I'm gonna fill this right to the top. I can't overfill it because I do need to put a cover on that. The steam is what makes the juice, so I can't have any space there. So I'm gonna fill it just enough because if I'm making juice, I wanna use all the apples I can, but I don't want to overfill it because it's very important that I put that lid on. Now there are a couple different ways to make a juice. Here on the farm we do have a cider press, which we do use. We use that for grapes, we use that for apples. But for this, I don't know if you've ever had the difference between apple juice and apple cider. Apple juice is clear and lovely, where cider has a little bit of that murkiness to it. Both are good in their own ways. But for jelly, Like I said before, I want it to be that really pretty pink. I don't want any brown jelly served along with my pork. There's enough brown in that pork. I don't need any in my jelly. So I do it this way. And honestly, it's easier. For the press, I have to grind up all those apples. And that takes some time and some strength. Where this, you can see I have filled this whole basket in just a couple minutes. All right, let's take that over to the stove top and we'll get this thing started. All right, this is my steamer. I got this from Amazon, which you can find pretty much anything at, obviously. But how it works is this bottom basin, I fill it to the very tip with water. The middle part is where my juice is going to collect, and the top part is where I put my apples. Now I want to make sure, like I said before, that none of that steam can escape. I want to best use my time. I don't want to half fill it, but on the other side, I don't want to not have juice out of this. And also, if you notice, I put a little glass jar here. Sometimes, even though there's this clamp on it, some of that juice escapes. I've learned the hard way that it's usually wise to have a collection spot, and that's what I have here. So on goes the heat, about medium. I don't want to heat this up too fast. And in about an hour, we're gonna have the most beautiful, delicious juice. All right, so this has been going for about an hour. I'm going to get about a quart out of this. I'm gonna let it go for a little bit longer because in the end, I'll probably have about 2.5 quarts. But do you see that really beautiful pink color? For the jelly I'm making, I only need 1 quart. Be careful, it's kind of hot here. So there I am, 1 quart. I shut it off. Again, I'm gonna put it in my jar here so it doesn't spill over my floor. Can you tell I've done that before? Now, this is gonna go into my saucepan, and this is where the sage comes in. I'm gonna pour this hot juice. Now, if you don't have apples to juice at home, you of course can use your regular apple juice you buy. That's absolutely fine. We're gonna bring this to boil, and we're gonna make kind of a tea. So obviously this is already hot. It's not gonna take too long to boil. I have about a cup of my sage ready to go. And after this gets to boiling, I'm going to put my sage in and cover the lid and let it go. So I'll see you back here in just a minute for that. All right, now it's boiling. So I just put in a little secret ingredient, and that is about a teaspoon of butter. Why I do that, you ask? If I ever made jelly, you can see that foam on the top. Every bit of that foam takes away from the jelly I get to use. And it's a pain to scrape it off, so I don't want to do that. So, butter, or if you're a vegan, you can also use coconut oil. For some reason, that fat links with that foam and keeps it from being a thing. There might still be a little bit left, but not nearly the amount I would have to normally scrape off. So I put that sugar in. And now, because this is fairly hot, this won't take too long at all. We're gonna let it come to a boil and boil for about a minute. I need to make sure all that sugar gets dissolved in. Now, if I thought it was thick before, it's really thick now. A little bit of sugar still needs to get stirred in. All stirred in. Just letting it come to that boil. I'm getting all of my jars ready because as soon as, you can see my jars over here, as soon as the whole process is ready, I need to get it going. I tend to like a thinner jar like that. Again, if I'm doing something, I want it to be pretty. Kind of reminds me of the French countryside. So, I use a thinner jar. It's the same amount. It just looks like it's more. Plus, it's pretty for giving gifts. So I make this one is an apple sage. I already spoke before about the apple mint I make. I make a cherry rosemary. And probably tomorrow I'm thinking about doing a cherry mint, a cherry lavender. I think that'll be pretty. Strangely enough, because our cherries are Rainier cherries, they're yellow. So the juice I get from that is more of a yellow. And then the apples are more of a pink. So it tends to be a little backwards at this house. I can't explain it, but that's how it is. I still have my juice going over here. The rest of it I'll end up canning just in quart-sized jars for either making jelly later on or just for us to enjoy over the winter. I don't put sugar in my juices. That way if I want to make it into a smoothie later, I can. Now, cherry juices I'm making right now, basically I got kind of tired of making cherry jam and cherry pie filling over the summer, so I just stuck the cherries, pits and all, in gallon-sized bag and stuck them in our freezer, which I do a lot with fruit, because when I'm harvesting, I don't always have the energy to make something of it right then. So, I wait till I have the energy. So you'll find that all winter long I'll be making different things. Just pulling it out of the freezer. Blueberries. Tons of blueberries. I don't think I'll make juice, jelly, or jam out of that. I just like, blueberries freeze so well. I just like it just the way it is. Maybe throw it in a pancake, muffin. Because there's no pit in a blueberry. It's work taking those pits out. So if I can put cherries in here and just get the juice out without having to mess with those pits, that's what I'm gonna do. If you can see back here, I've got some stock going. Got some beef bones and some what's left of the garden, some parsley, some peppers, onions, carrots, a little celery, just in some pots going because tomorrow's gonna be soup day. I think it's just starting to boil. I'm gonna take what's left of the leeks from the garden and some potatoes and make some vichyssoise and can that, so that all I'll have to do in the winter when I feel like some vichyssoise, I'll just take it out, puree it, and it'll be ready to go. And then probably for some reason I'm really in, okay, it's ready to go, so I'm putting the kitchen timer on 1 minute. And start. So 1 minute, I'm gonna turn it down because this will boil over, and that is a mess you don't wanna clean up. I know I don't. I've been really into French onion soup this year. I planted a ridiculous, oh, that's still going. I'm gonna lift it right off that heat. That's why I turned down the wrong one. There we go. I turned down the back burner. All right. I've been making French onion soup base, which is, I have discovered, so good in so many things. I made a pumpkin soup last night. I just opened a can of French onion soup, which is basically beef broth, beef stock, some sauteed onions, a little bit of brandy, and a little bit of red wine. It is so good. So I had that with some pumpkin last night. We had some pumpkin bisque. The other week, again, French onion soup. Popped open a can, mixed it with some cooked hamburger, put a little milk in there, melted some cheese in. We had cheeseburger soup. So easy when the ingredients are already there. And that's it. That was my 1 minute. I turn off the heat. Do you see how I have so little foam there? All I'll have to do is just scrape that little bit off. Got it in my pectin cup already ready. You don't want that foam in there. Anything that has like bubbles has a chance to breed bacteria, and you don't want bacteria in your jelly. Just gonna pull it all over. I tend to tuck it more towards the side. If you let it cool for a minute, it's a little bit easier to gather up that foam. See how much I'm wasting though by just pulling it off? Imagine if that was more foam. How much jam and jelly I would waste. It's much better this way. I'm getting there. Maybe a little bit more. Again, I just can't stop. Good enough isn't quite good enough. I have to make sure I get it all. You don't want to be the one with that foam on the top of your jelly if I give you a Christmas gift. There we go, almost done. One last little scoop. Then I'll say one last little one. All right, that's enough. All right, so now this works much better with a funnel because you don't want to worry about spilling all of your jam and jelly over the side of your jar. because then if you have any liquid on the side, it might not seal. So I just use my little ladle here. Again, I'm minimizing the space. Can you tell I've spilled this before I made a mess? I have. You want it to be about 1/4 inch on the bottom. There you go. Next. It's already starting to set here. You kind of have to move fast. Okay. Next. Now I like to put probably a little bit more on top just because despite all of my best efforts, there's usually just a little bit of foam in there. So after it's come to set a little bit, I'll come with a spoon and just get it off, that last little bit off. You would not believe how good this is with a pork chop. It's so good. Alright. 5. I might only get 5 jars out of this. Sometimes I get 5, sometimes I get 6. Just depends on how much of that juice is staying in the sage and if any evaporates or... Yep, 5 it is. Alright. I'm going to let those set for just a minute. And then I'm going to scrape those little bitty bubbles off the top because I don't want those. So I'll see you back here in just a minute. Okay, it's been about a minute, so you can see it's solidified on top. It makes it a lot easier to get it out. That's what we're going to do. There's one. Oh, go right back in there. 2. Now while that's going, I have my can steamer over here. I don't really use this for anything else but jams and jellies. I use my water bath and my pressure canner for things that, I don't want to say things that matter, but things where there's a higher risk of any contamination. Jam and jelly, I know a place around here where they just pour the hot jam in sterilized jars, put the lid on and call it good. I'm not quite that adventurous, but really does not have to seal long, so steam is good enough for me. Now, just in case I happen to spill a little bit on there, I'm going to just carefully wipe each rim off, because again, you don't want anything to come in between that rim and the seal. Plus, it's a good last chance for me to check and make sure that there's no nicks on the edge, because if I have any kind of not smooth surface, these aren't going to seal either. Which means I have to eat the jam all right now, which that would be a shame now, wouldn't it? You have to eat a whole jar of jam all in one sitting. Not saying it hasn't been done before, but I'd hate to have to do it today. So you just put your lids on. And you don't want to pull, and I have to make sure they're even. I had one the other day that was lopsided, and of course it didn't seal. So put your lids on. This is getting ready to set. You don't want to pull too, and this is hot. Be careful, these are hot. You don't want to twist too hard because that will keep it from setting as well. All right, so steam is coming out of my steamer. It's nice and hot. So these jams are going right in. Jellies, I'm sorry. Jellies are going right in. And these have to go for a minimum of 10 minutes. So let me set that timer on. Kitchen timer. And I will see you back here in 10 minutes. All right, so it's been 10 minutes. Do you see that steam coming out? That is what we are looking for. Now, a little bit of safety in here. I, of course, am opening it away from myself, not towards myself, because steam burns are a real thing, and they're not fun. I can already hear them starting to pop sealed closed. So I'm just going to take them out and set them aside. And I don't even want to touch them for 24 hours. By that point, they'll be completely sealed. They'll be gelled up nice, and they'll be ready for my pork chop. And that, my friends, is how it's done. That is how you make apple sage jelly. I hope you have a great day.